Exactly 25 years ago, Thelma and Louise drove its way into film history. That iconic feminist road movie, directed by Ridley Scott, had its world premiere here in Cannes in May 1991. The film's stars are back in town this week to celebrate that anniversary and to pick up the prestigious Women in Motion Award. I got a chance to meet Thelma and Louise themselves, Oscar winners Geena Davis and Susan Sarandon. Geena Davis and Susan Sarandon, hello.
Hi.
Such a pleasure to meet you both.
Thank
Thelma
you.
and Louise came out 25 years ago. Does it feel that long?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's crazy.
Geena, you were saying that there was such a pivotal moment for you, kind of a defining moment, right at the script reading for Thelma and Louise. That had to do with Susan. Could you share that with us?
I just had never met anybody like Susan, basically. She was so dazzling in her self-confidence and poise, and we were going to talk with
I love this story. I don't remember it that way, but I love when she tells the story.
No, I'm so embarrassing. I'm sure I'm always talking about you, but we were going to have a meeting, just Susan and I and Ridley, to go through the script and, you know, give any thoughts that we had. And had always been very, very careful not to offend anybody. Don't ask for anything, don't have any needs. So we start and to go through the script, and it was, I think, page 1, and Susan said, I don't think that should be my first line. I think we should just cut that line. And then in the next page, well, maybe we could switch that around. And I was just like, whoa, you could actually be like that.
I can't stand it when you holler in the morning.
I'm sorry, doll. I just didn't want you to be late.
Hey, how you doing, little housewife?
Is he your husband or your father?
How come Dara let you go?
Because I didn't ask him.
He's gonna kill you!
I left him a note.
I tell this other story about you all the time, about taking the top off. Do you remember that? So one day we're shooting and we're going to lunch. We're breaking for lunch, and Ridley says, hey, Geena, I was thinking in the next scene after lunch, you guys are driving and feeling great and exhilarated. What if you were just to, like, just take your top off? And I didn't answer. I just said, I think they need me to eat lunch. I better go. And I find Susan, who's eating, and I say, Susan, Ridley wants me to take my top off. Oh, for heaven's sake. She throws down her silverware, finds Ridley, and says, Ridley, Gina's not taking her top off. And he was like, oh, okay, you know. No. And she just goes back to eating, and I'm like, oh, thank God for Susan.
Even without tops off, there are a few steamy scenes in the movie that have stayed in the minds of people, Geena, and a young Brad Pitt who was introduced to viewers. But Susan, you were saying you actually have a very interesting memory of the day of that shoot, of those steamy scenes.
Well, not the day of the shoot, although she did come back and say that, you know, the lighting was a lot better in that scene than anything we were getting. No, I have a recollection of when they were looking at the dailies, because I wasn't there for that scene. Damn. And on that particular day, when the dailies came back, we waited and we waited, and they didn't come back from lunch, and they didn't come back from lunch, and it was like hours before they came back from lunch. So obviously, those scenes really piqued their interest more than the other scenes.
Did you see his butt?
Thelma, have you lost your mind?
Thelma and Louise was such an empowering film for so many women, but did it change things in Hollywood at all?
Well, we were led to believe that it would. I mean, all the press was talking about now things are going to be so different, because it was a big hit, and now it's going to be more female road pictures, buddy movies, more movies in general starring women. But it didn't. It did not change things.
And Geena, you went on to found the Geena Davis Institute on Gender in the Media. What was it that gave you the idea to actually do that?
You know, being in Thelma and Louise really heightened my awareness about how women are portrayed in Hollywood, how few opportunities we give women to identify with the female characters. But it wasn't until I had kids that I noticed how few female characters there were in what we're showing little kids in the 21st century. And It turned out nobody I mentioned it to noticed what I was noticing. In fact, every creator I talked to said, that's not true anymore. That's already been fixed. So that's what made me want to get the data and go back to them and say, hey, what do you think? And it's that the data's changed everything.
You're both mothers of daughters. What's one thing, one motto, one sentence you could communicate to them for their lives?
You know, what's interesting is that I knew the problems that a female child would have. So I was focused on empowering her and, you know, not giving her gender-designated toys. But when I had boys was when I really realized the problem that wasn't being looked at, and that is that the socialization process for boys just tears them apart between the competitiveness of sports and the, you know, boys don't cry, and, you know, just that really, that part of the equation needs to be looked at. Now with so many women working outside the home, there are more male children that are ready to accept strong women, but still this macho kind of insensitive pressure that's put on boys in all cultures, I think, really. And the more competent the women become, the less it seems necessary to them to be able to open a door or just listen, to not listen. You know, what has to happen. So we're teaching girls to be overly nice and polite and teaching boys to be brutes in order to be masculine, and it follows straight through into, you know, this idea that negotiating is not manly.
Just to wrap up, we were talking about the influence of airtime and media on gender. What about politics? Do you think the rise of someone like Donald Trump today in the States is due to excessive airtime on a show like The Apprentice?
Yeah, obviously. It's due to the fact that they wanted ratings, and he was a clown, and it's the same thing on the internet. You can have it's happened to me many times where there's an interview and then they put some shocking, completely irresponsible lead, which has nothing to do with the article, and it gets people hysterical.
But to make someone president?
Well, but what I'm saying is that if you're not covering Bernie Sanders till he wins Iowa, and nobody knows who he is, nobody knows what he stands for, whose responsibility is that? Because you want the ratings of a Donald Trump because he's so funny and he has such, you know, there's no substance. And if you look at the way people interview or cover the interviews of candidates after the debates, it's like they're talking about the Miss America pageant. They don't talk about, in the United States anyway. I know just the difference of being interviewed by correspondents from other countries. They'll ask a follow-through question. They'll challenge an answer. In the United States, it's kind of like, well, that seemed very presidential. I don't know. He really best. They don't talk about the issues. They didn't in any way hold Trump responsible for anything specific in his policy.
Thank you so much, Susan Sarandon and Geena Davis. Real pleasure.
Thank
you.